Hi there, this is David and welcome to the Top 10 Strangest RPGs 2005 edition. This year had a plethora of odd games, so much so that even after listing the 10 here, all have only made it to October, and there are still strange games to talk about in the tail end of the year. I think that this was about the time that JRPGs were selling like hotcakes on the PS2, so Sony greenlit just about everything that was sent over from Japan, no matter how odd, and we're all better for it. As usual, I'll be presenting the 10 games here in release order, so let's get started. Number 10, Radiata Stories, released in January for the PlayStation 2. Pokemon and Chrono Cross seem to have started a trend of RPGs with ridiculously inflated rosters. At one point, it seemed like each game wanted to outdo the next with how many characters that they could shoehorn in there. I was never a fan of this particular trend, but nothing epitomizes it like Radiata Stories, or as I like to call it, the secret life of the NPC. In this twist on the genre, just about every single one of the townsfolk can join your party, each complete with their own personalities, not just annoying accents to differentiate them. But that's not all that makes it odd. There are fourth wall breaks, other tri-Ace crossovers, kicking the crap out of everyone that moves, and if you want to, you can turn to the dark side. Number 9, Popolocrois, released in February for the PSP. When I picked up this gem from GameStop for $2.99, I certainly wasn't expecting to find the absolute best RPG for the PSP. This hidden gem is a combination of two RPGs released for the PlayStation in Japan, but never released in the West, and as such, it's just chock full of content. The characters are lovingly crafted, the NPCs are interesting, and the battle system is grid-based, kind of like the system in Lunar and Trails. Also, for those of you who are constantly on the hunt for a game like Earthbound, look no further than this. The visuals and large maps are full of secrets and treasure which really harkens back to that groundbreaking game. I could go on singing its praises, but you've really just got to play it to see how charming it is. Number 8, SMT Digital Devil Saga 1 and 2, released in April for the PlayStation 2. This small duology are almost like starter games for the larger SMT franchise. While playing a typical SMT can be quite difficult and sometimes overwhelming, it's not so bad here since the designers opted to go a much more traditional route, with the turn orders battle system complete with static party members and no monster capturing or evolution systems. I, for one, applaud them for that because if there's anything that I can't stand, it's monster capturing. The storyline, though, is still dark, dreary, and depressing, following rival gangs of demons living in a junkyard who are all out to kill each other to reach Nirvana and escape from this hellhole. Be warned, though, the story does end on a cliffhanger, so you will have to play the sequel in order to get to the whole plot. Number 7, Jade Empire, released in April for the Xbox. Never heard of this game? Well, you're in good company, because if you're anything like me, you skipped the Xbox entirely because it had no RPGs whatsoever. Well, except for this one. Let me try to explain how this oddball game works. Take Legend of Legaia's fantastic turn-based battle system where you put together combos like in a fighting game, but set it in ancient China and then make it a Western RPG, but with a linear storyline more akin to a JRPG. Then mix it all together and you've pretty much got Jade Empire. It's quite the strange mix, and what sets it apart from the rest is the good versus evil system where you can choose to be a total asshole to whiny, helpless villagers, and the crazy plot twist with your master. It's a doozy. Number 6, Metal Saga, released in June for the PlayStation 2. Here we have yet another post-apocalyptic game where machines are running haywire and outlaws abound. So it's up to you, a hunter, to hop into a tank of your own and then go out, explore, and then just pretty much do whatever the hell you want to do. This is definitely not a save the world type game, although you can if you want to. It's really more like the Saga series where it's open world but with no real overarching plot, just various events that you can stumble across as you traverse the world. As such, you're kind of set adrift to do your own thing, and fittingly, there are tons of endings, even one right at the beginning of the game if you say that you'd rather stay at home and be a mechanic. If this looks familiar, that's because it's actually part of the Metal Max series, which I did feature in my very first Strangest RPGs video. Number 5, Steambot Chronicles, released in June for the PlayStation 2. If you like open world RPGs, or what you just saw with Metal Saga, you're going to like this game too. Starting off with a personality test which actually impacts how characters respond to you, it's another sandbox game for you to explore to your heart's content, complete with tons of hysterical dialogue options to choose from. Towards the beginning of the game, you'll stumble across the game's namesake, the fully customizable Trotmobile, which you use to explore the world, play minigames, complete quests, and gain employment for any number of things. But the real crux of the game, providing replay value for another playthrough, is the fact that you can choose to either be good or evil around the halfway point of the game. Number 4. Shadow Hearts from the New World, released in July for the PlayStation 2. In this series, we've discussed both the first and the second Shadow Hearts games, and here we're going to be completing the trilogy by discussing this oddball, strange even by Shadow Hearts standards. It's a Gaiden or a side story to the original events, taking place not in Europe and Asia, but now in the Americas, and starring an entirely new cast of characters during the Roaring Twenties. While the first game was pretty basic, here the battles have been upgraded quite a bit, with a turn order system akin to Final Fantasy X, 4 party member battles, a combo system, and a fully customizable magic system based upon the constellations. The storyline is off-the-wall wacky and pretty funny, and I've gotta say, the series really did go out with a bang. Number 3. Sakura Wars, So Long My Love, released in July for the PS2 and then much later, the Wii. This is actually the 5th game in a long-running series, but the first one that made it to the West, and probably for good reason. Weirdo dating sims like this were never my cup of tea, and normally always relegated to obscurity. Just look at Thousand Arms if you don't believe me. Nowadays, though, they're much more popular, but back then, at least in the West, this was uncharted territory. Here we are again placed in 1920s America, as a young officer in love with a vaudeville troupe who gets into tactical turn-based combat with mechs, but the combat plays second fiddle to the wacky dialogue options, absurd storyline, and laugh-out-loud craziness. A cool little thing to note, too, the PlayStation 2 version actually came with 2 discs, one with English voices and another with Japanese voices. That's some fan-based dedication right there. Number 2. Sigma Star Saga, released in August for the Game Boy Advance. An RPG space shooter hybrid? Say it ain't so! I like to think of this as a spiritual successor to the Guardian Legend, insofar as you explore a 2D overworld, but then fight random battles in a side-scrolling fashion like Gradius or Life Force for the NES. Here you'll have to destroy a certain amount of enemies in order to proceed. The story is pretty basic. You're an undercover space pilot whose job it is to slay Earth's enemies, the alien Krill. Similar to the Guardian Legend, though, the game is divided up into chapters, with different planets to explore and story bits in between. There's also a weapon and spaceship upgrade system which allows for tons of different strategies and gameplay styles both in the overworld and in the spaceship battles. Number 1. Romancing Saga Minstrel Song, released in October of 2005 for the PlayStation 2. While the West has received some undercover Saga games in the past, along with some Saga spin-offs, this one is the first true Saga game that we received, which is actually kind of fitting because it's a fully updated remake of the original SNES release. Saga games by their nature are weird, there's just no getting around it, and they're not for everyone either because they're open-ended to a fault. You begin with your choice of one of 8 heroes who travels the world, completing various quests and recruiting other party members. Every single playthrough will be different just because of the astronomical amount of things that you can do. It's really a shame that this series just never had the chance to take off in the West. If Square released the 3 SNES games back in the day, I'm sure that it would have much more of a following than it does now. Well, that's it for the strangest RPGs of 2005. What do you think are the strangest RPGs that you've ever played? Do you agree or disagree? Let me know in the comments, and as always, have a good day.